Welcome to week 14 of our class. This is the last recorded lecture for the semester. This week we'll be discussing numbers above 60 as well as do a review of all of the grammar in Module 3. To start off with, let's look at the tens for numbers above 60. To say 60, we say 60. 70 is 70. 80 is 80. 90, 90. 100 is 100, and 1,000 is 1000. So before we go on, just a couple of notes here. You can see that the French don't have a single number to mean 70, 80, and 90 as we do in English. Instead, what they have is a mathematical system which explains the numbers that we need to have. So for 70, 70, it's actually 60 plus 10. 80, 80, is actually 4 20s. And 90, 90, is actually 4 20s plus 10. You probably already recognize some words here. Cent, for example, for cent in English, it means 100. You've also seen words like centimeter and centiliter. Those words cent mean 100. Mille or MIL, millimeter, milliliter, that prefix always means 1,000. So to count through the 70s, we're not going to say 71, 72, 73. In French, we're going to say 60, 10, 60, 11, 60, 12, 60, 13, and so on. Remember that when you get to 77, 78, and 79, to say 17, 18, and 19 in French, it's 10, 7, 10, 8, 10, 9. We did that back in Module 1. So let's work on pronunciation. I'll read these and you can listen and practice along. 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79. As we said, 80 has a different system as well. There's not a word for 80. We say 4 20s. To say 81, we say 4 and 21. 82 is 4 20s plus 2. 83 is 4 20s plus 3, and so on. The pronunciation is like this. 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89. Possibly the most complicated system is the 90s. Not only do we have the 4 20s for the 80, but then we have 10, 11, 12, 13, and so on, 90s. Again, with 17, 18, and 19 at the end, which is 10 plus 7, 10 plus 8, 10 plus 9. Although this sounds ridiculous, and to us it sort of is, you have to realize that this gives kids a great mathematical advantage when they get to elementary school. So to say 97, 98, and 99, what you're actually saying is 4 20s plus 10 plus 7, 4 20s plus 10 plus 8, and 4 20s plus 10 plus 9 for 99. The pronunciation is like this. 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98 et 99. So this is an overview of numbers. We will be practicing this more in lab, but if you'd like to pause here or review the numbers, this is a good place to stop. As we go on, the rest of this presentation is going to actually be a review of the grammar that we've learned thus far and entirely in Module 3. We kind of had a heavy grammar chapter, so let's go through some of it. The first thing we talked about was the verb venir, which is an irregular verb, and it's conjugated like here. Je viens, tu viens, il vient, nous venons, vous venez, ils viennent. All right? This means to come, and when we use it often with a preposition, the preposition de, which means to come from. We talked about contractions that have to be made with this preposition. We said that when you have de and le together, we have to make the contraction du. Down at the bottom row, when you have de and les together, you have to make the contraction des. For example, Arnaud vient du cinéma. He's coming back from the cinema. The du is from the. Arnaud vient de la librairie. So he's coming back from the library, or the bookstore, excuse me. So the bookstore is feminine. We don't make a contraction with de la, we just leave it alone. Arnaud vient de l'université. He's coming from the university. Because university starts with a vowel, we use L apostrophe, and we don't need to make a contraction. But Arnaud vient des cours. Arnaud is coming back from the classes. Again, with the plural les and the preposition de, we have to make the contraction des. We talked more about the preposition de, and we said that the preposition has three meanings. First, it can mean it's used to indicate the origin of someone or something. For example, je suis de Boisé. I am from Boise. Or, elle arrive de la bibliothèque. She's coming from the library. The preposition de is also used to show possession, and this is the equivalent of that apostrophe S in English. Voici la voiture de Frédéric. Here is Frederick's car. Literally what we're saying here is the car of Frédéric. You cannot say any other way, here is Frederick's car in French, than to use this de and to sort of put it backwards, the car of Frederick. The other example, je travaille à la bibliothèque de l'université. I work at the university library. Literally what this saying is, I work at the library of the university. Okay? So it's showing possession, who the library belongs to or what it belongs to, by using de. Our last type of way that we're using the preposition de is with the verb parler. This is less common. You're going to see the first two ways to use it more often, but when you use the preposition de with the verb parler, it means to talk about something. Nous parlons beaucoup de la politique. We're talking a lot about politics. Or, vous parlez du président. You're talking about the president. We talked as well about adjectives, two different kinds, in this chapter. Remember that in French, adjectives have to agree both in number and in gender with the nouns that they modify. In other words, if you are describing a noun that is masculine and singular, then your adjective also must be masculine and singular. If you're describing a noun that is feminine and singular, like car, and I want to say it's a big car, then the word big also needs to be feminine and singular to match up with car. So in this chapter, we looked at two different kinds of adjectives. The first were the possessive adjectives. These are words that mean my, your, his, her, its, one's, our, your, formal and plural, or their. And if you'll remember, we said that there were three different ways to form the first three and two different ways for the last three rows. When you're using these adjectives in French, you need to look at the thing that is possessed, not the person who owns it. For example, if I am talking about my father, I would say mon père, because père, the thing that is possessed, is masculine. If my brother was saying my mother is happy. He would say ma mère because mother is feminine. Similarly, if I were talking about my mother and I said my mother is happy, I too would say ma mère because mother is feminine. The gender of the adjective here doesn't have anything to do with the gender of the person who owns the object. It has to do with the object that is owned. Anyone talking about someone else's father is going to say ton père because père is masculine. Similarly, they would say ta mère. So if I'm talking about John's mother, and I know John well enough to use tu, I would say ta mère. For example, comment va ta mère? How's your mom doing? If I were asking about Susie's father, I would say comment va ton père? Even though Susie's a woman, her father is masculine, and that's what counts. We've gone through the chart before. Mon, ma, mes for my, ton, ta, tes for your, son, sa, ses for his, hers, its, one's, notre, nos for our, votre, vos for your, and leur with an S for their. The other kind of adjective we talked about were some ones with spelling changes. Remember, all adjectives need to get to an E on the end for the feminine. The way we get there is a little bit different for some of them, however. This chart goes through the spelling changes, changing an X to an S, an R to an S, adding an accent or changing an F to a V, etc., before adding the E for the feminine, S for the masculine, and an extra S for the feminine, just like we've always done. Remember that there are 3 adjectives that are a little bit irregular in that they have 5 forms instead of 4 like the others. These are explained in our textbook in Module 3, in the structures pages. But the 3 forms are nouveau, beau, and vieux. And we said that the reason that these adjectives are a little bit different is because they are part of the group of adjectives we call bags adjectives. In French, remember, most adjectives come after the noun that they modify. There are a couple, the bags adjectives, that come before the noun that they modify. The bags adjectives represent beauty, age, goodness, and size. So when we're talking about beauty, age, goodness, and size, we put adjectives related to those concepts before the noun they're modifying. If I say, she's a beautiful young woman, because both beauty and age come before woman, I can put them before the noun in French as well. C'est une belle jeune femme. But if I want to say she's a young, intelligent woman, because intelligence has nothing to do with beauty, age, goodness, or size, I would put that after the adjective, or the noun, and say, c'est une jeune femme intelligente. The last thing we discussed in this chapter are the prepositions of place. These prepositions tell where things are located. Remember, a preposition is anything that you can do to a box. It describes a relationship between 2 nouns. I can be in the box, I can walk around the box, I can step over the box. And all of those different words, in, around, and over, describe a different relationship between me and the box. Some of these adjectives have de after them in the second column. Remember, we just talked about this a little bit earlier. When you have de followed by either le or les, you have to make a contraction. And I've shown them again here. De and le make du, de les makes de, the others you leave alone. I hope this quick review has been helpful. Bring all of your questions to lab, as usual, and we'll talk about them there.